recently going through my downloaded app history on the App Store, looking for a Witcher 3 checklist app I used to use, when I came across an app I've not used in many years and totally forgotten it even existed. The World of Ice and Fire app came out in 2012 and for the most part seemingly flew under the radar for a lot of people. In summary, it's an official encyclopedia produced by George R. R. Martin's publishers. I almost missed it because the app icon had changed since I last used it, in probably around 2013. So I downloaded it and was immediately transported back to 2013, as the app had seemingly not changed much, if at all, since then. After some googling, it seems that a lot of other people never really knew this app existed either, and development on it seemingly stopped a long time ago now. In short, the World of Ice and Fire app is an encyclopedia of the world of A Song of Ice and Fire and George R. R. Martin, with detailed character profiles, info about locations, and objects. It almost acts as an officially sanctioned wiki in a way. One thing to bear in mind is it does seem most of the detail comes from locations and characters from the main books, rather than the newer spin-off books such as Fire and Blood. The actual character profiles are really cool, using the wonderful artwork from the Fantasy Fight game and other official sources such as the calendars. Now, what makes this different from the hugely popular fan wikis is the character profiles. While they are profiles in a sense, they also act as a way to summarize the whole story of the character from chapter to chapter. For example, let's take a look at Tyrion. While it does obviously give you an overview of his character, it also tells you his whole story in much more detail than a wiki would. It's great if you want to refresh your memory of the main books, but don't want to commit to a full-on reread. Like the wiki, any connections with info in the database are also linked, such as siblings and his house. Clicking on the houses, you get taken to a brief overview and list of every character mentioned in the main books part of that house. It's very easy to fall down a rabbit hole with this, and before you know it, hours have gone. The same idea applies for locations and objects. However, I find the information on them is much more limited than the character profiles, but if you're using the app as a companion while reading, it's a really good quick way to get an idea of where places are and see some kind of visual representation of it to help you build a better picture. I have a feeling the intention was to flesh this app out a lot more, with the information added from the World of Ice and Fire book, and then later Fire and Blood. And you can see where that had begun to happen in some places. For example, a lot of the more obscure lore, such as lore around Essos and the deeper Targaryen history, seems to be using almost the exact copy from the World of Ice and Fire in some cases. And therein lies the huge issue with this app. And given the growing world of Westeros, it's quite a big issue. When it comes to the information about people and locations of the main books, I would say it's 99% accurate. I've had a hard time finding anything that's noticeably wrong. However, when you take a look past the main books, I was a little bit disappointed how many errors I managed to find within a quick 5-minute glance. For example, let's take a look at Jaehaerys Targaryen, one of my personal favourite Targaryen kings and someone whose reign makes up a huge chunk of Targaryen history, so his importance can't be put aside and you'd expect him to have quite a detailed entry. Well, in reality the information on the page is very brief and hardly even scratches the surface. But the main issue here comes with the accuracy in the information, specifically with his family connections. Only Alysanne and Rhaena are listed as his siblings, and it's missing Aegon the Uncrowned and Viserys. Even worse, Rhaena does not even have her own page, which is very odd given how important she is to Jaehaerys and his story. But the bigger issue comes down to Jaehaerys and Alysanne's children. Of the 13 children they had that lived to adulthood, the app only acknowledges Aemon and Balon, with Balon not even having his own dedicated page. When you actually do click on the link to Aemon's page, it takes you to the wrong Aemon Targaryen. So rather than Jaehaerys' son Aemon, it takes you to the son of Viserys II. But then it gets even worse than that. On King Viserys' page, you find Rhaenyra, arguably one of the most important characters in the Dance of the Dragons, such a huge part of A Song of Ice and Fire lore, does not even have her own entry. But again, similar problems with Jaehaerys arise here. However, with Viserys, it does list all his children correctly. However, it links Daeron Targaryen to King Daeron Targaryen, two completely different characters. Now, with a quick further look, issues like this are riddled throughout the app. Anything not directly connected to the main books. And even then, I've not really had the time and chance to literally go through every entry to prove it. So there very well may be errors there as well. So yes, It seems that in terms of information outside of the main books, there is a hell of a lot of issues with the app, and that was only me playing about with it for 5 minutes. If someone who did not know the lore tried to use this app to learn about it, they're going to get very confused and walk away with a very wrong impression. I think they intended to flesh out the rest of the lore, using information from the World of Ice and Fire, and maybe even eventually Fire and Blood. But it is clear that the project was abandoned long ago and has been left in this unfortunate, frankly broken state. The app offers some other cool tools as well though, that in my opinion almost make it worth it on its own. Now, firstly, it does have a spoiler filter that limits the information you can see depending on your settings. So if you tell the app you only have read the first 2 books, for example, then the information the app will show you will be limited to that of that time frame. So I think if you're going to do a reread or want to refresh your memory a little bit about the events of the books, it's a great tool for doing that. But the element of the app I love the most, and the tool I use the most, when I did actively use the app, was the journey tracker. When I did my first reread of the books, I wanted to track where every character was in the world in relation to one another, to get a better understanding of the world itself. This app has the perfect tool to do that. Using the very detailed maps from the Lands of Ice and Fire, you can pick up the 5 point of view characters and scroll chapter by chapter and see their journey across Westeros and Essos, leaving a clear, visible, colour-coded path behind them. For example, again, let's look at Tyrion. You can see his journey start in King's Landing, lead him to Winterfell, and eventually, as you scroll through the chapters, to where he ends up in a dance with dragons in Meereen. You can follow his journey step by step and see everywhere he's been. And what's great, you can see where he is in relation to the other characters. I found this tool really interesting and really great for characters like Tyrion, Daenerys, Arya, who do travel very far and to many different places. You really get a sense of how much distance they have gone. It's a great visual tool to use on your rereads to keep track of where everyone is. The last little touch that some might find interesting is the app also includes all of the officially published sample chapters we have so far for the Winds of Winter. So if you've not read them yet and you maybe want to get a bit of a preview for what's coming, the app may be a good way to do that. Despite its huge flaws when it comes to the wider lore and its incomplete nature, I do really like the idea and concept behind the app, and I do encourage people to give the map tool a go next time you're reading the books. There is a lot of errors, more so than I think is really acceptable for something that's supposed to be the encyclopedia, especially when it comes to the wider lore, which is a shame given it is an official product. But it seems like a bulk of the work was done on the app when A World of Ice and Fire and Fire and Blood were still being developed, and sadly this app has long since been forgotten about and just abandoned and left to collect dust. The A Song of Ice and Fire wiki is great, but I would have loved to have seen this app reach its full potential because it offers a completely different user experience. The main reason I wanted to make this video was to shed some light on this long forgotten app and ask you guys if you'd ever heard of it or used it before. It's clear that, for a while at least, a lot of time and effort was put into making it, only for it just to be forgotten and left in the depths of the App Store.